Welcome everybody to our webinar. As you can see, since we're fully remote at Peters, we're going to change it up this week and we're going to be video. So Bruce, Tim are the two gentlemen you see on the screen, and then I'm Sam. So let's go ahead and get things started. I'm going to turn it over to Bruce and Tim to talk about Microsoft Teams. Take it away, guys.
All right, this is different for me because usually my session crashes and I'm panicking to get back into the meeting. So here we are again with another Teams webinar. The focus today is on voice and conferencing. So anything you want to throw in there, Bruce?
No, just from history, we started maybe 2-3 weeks ago with a conversation around Teams in general. The last webinar we did was on Teams 10 practical use cases, of which voice and video were a couple demonstrated use cases of that 10. And I thought we'd do a deeper dive on voice and conferencing, which seems to be, as it turns out, this is very appropriate relative to the people's need to be working remote today. So our timing happened to be good. Hopefully you can learn something. And as mentioned, Tim and I are going to have some time for some Q&A, not only at the end of this, but you'll hear further about Q&A opportunity daily on a daily basis that we'll be mentioning too.
So today's agenda, we're going to cover just briefly Skype's to Teams upgrade, what that would look like. We're going to talk about calling. We're going to talk about meetings, Teams rooms, Teams enabled devices, and just spend a little bit of time on Teams live events. So this is what the agenda is going to look like. Maybe today will be a little different, a little less formal. There's a lot of material here to cover. Hopefully be some more questions because people have a different focus, I think, with COVID. So it's kind of shifted the way everybody's working right now. We kind of thought this was appropriate, but maybe not so technical, maybe just a little more open to discussion.
Yeah, we're open to zig and zag as items have dictated here. Environment has dictated.
So our first question, we're starting to offer up something called an office hours. We're actually going to have one right after this meeting, just trying to provide some resources for people. Ask an expert. No question is too small. No topic is too difficult. So I guess that'd be our first poll question. Would you be interested in participating in something like that?
Yeah, during this poll, we've fielded questions about, how do I make my office more remote? What can Teams do for me? So it's both, presenting your own challenge as well as, what are some opportunities? So with that, the answers were, yes and maybes. So people are open to how this is. So Tim, I think we have some details on that we're sharing later, right?
Yeah, well, right here. So
yeah, there you go.
To find a link to the event, just go to peters.com/events, and there'll be a blog post there with the details of the meeting and a link to, it's going to be a Teams meeting. So if you click that link, it'll join you right to that Teams meeting. So,
and for those who haven't participated in a Teams meeting, that'll be your first. And otherwise, it's partially around Teams technology as one of the remote access solutions, which is why it came up here. But certainly there are other technologies people bring to the table, VPN, how do I's, Citrix, things of that nature. And we're fortunate in that we're well versed in a lot of these infrastructure items. So.
Yeah, no agenda.
We've got this staffed with Tim and myself from a Teams perspective. We also have brought in engineers, project managers, and other management staff throughout our organization. So.
All right, moving on. So the first topic I just want to spend a little time on today is the migration from Skype to Teams. So we did it with our organization. We're working with others to go through that because Skype is going to be end of life July of 21. So it's something that you need to start planning now. And there's a couple ways to do that. They're listed here. The island mode, where you just run your two instances and they're completely separate. So you can work in Teams or in Skype, but they won't communicate, and that's more of a quick way. So you fire up your teams and get people used to it and then just cut over. Or the other way, where it's a more thought out, a longer progression, and you actually enable Skype and Teams to work together, which is more complicated, but it'll ease people's transition. It's not so harsh, just cutting that cord.
Imagine capabilities in the collaboration mode where a Skype client is able to IM a Teams client and vice versa. They're able to see presence information, but there may be, and there might be some sharing capabilities between, but it's a joint mode, allowing you to kind of make the transition, a slower Band-Aid pull, I'll call it.
So
we ourselves did an islands mode configuration, if that matters. So
just some more statistics on meetings and Teams. I think, why aren't meetings successful online? They're long, people aren't always prepared. People come late. Scheduling is difficult. People are unsatisfied with their current meetings. And we're going to show some of the way Teams can overcome some of these statistics. So just some more information to kind of focus on why Teams.
I think another one that's not present there, Tim, is the idea of not being there physically at that time, and physically or remote in this case, and the ability to record and keep those that asset together. It's 1 hour of maybe 8-10 people collaborating at that time, and if one person's not present, it really can create some islands of information unknowingly. So
just again, some more information on why Microsoft for voice. I think here the focus is the 12 years as a leader from Gartner's perspective. Later in the presentation, I'll show you how I actually set up voice in our demo tenant, and it took me all of 5 minutes to do it. So it's a very proven technology at this point, and it's really evolved over those 12 years.
We ourselves have been through 3 iterations. Back in the OCS days, we didn't have the voice component, but certainly used the presence and IM and otherwise. But when it went to Link and then to Skype and now into Teams, we've kind of followed that journey, I'll call it, along the way. And Teams by far, as you can imagine, is the most mature. And we're at a situation now where we're leveraging Microsoft's 99.9 SLA and their uptime with regards to service, as opposed to having some on-prem components.
All right, time for another poll. So, does your current phone system work remotely? So, do you have the same phone number, same routing rules, the same user experience?
I'll add to that, one of the challenges we're seeing right off the bat with customers as they went into a mode where they needed to have their remote workers was phone numbers that were calling phones at desks where people are no longer sitting. And they needed those phones, you don't just pick up your phone and bring it home with you, right? They need immediately the ability to continue communicating with customers, both from a support perspective, a sales perspective. So this has become quickly applicable, and we'll talk about some solutions in this space too. Great. We actually have some some decent phone systems that are traveling with users to a high degree. Certainly, that's one of the things for from Teams perspective. It travels and works just as well remotely as otherwise.
So, next part of the presentation will focus on voice. This is just a big picture. How does Teams and Microsoft Voice work? It's your PBX in the cloud. You have a few options on how you can configure that. You can do it strictly with Microsoft by getting a calling plan and getting numbers directly from Microsoft, or You can do direct routing, where it's a combination of using some of Microsoft's technology and some of your own.
Yeah, essentially the direct routing is usually a physical appliance that you're purchasing called a session border controller, and you'll put that in your data center. You would terminate your PRIs or have SIP channels that are cordoned off for use of your own on-prem PRI in those instances. We ourselves leverage the Microsoft calling plans, as again, we wanted to kind of there's difficulty in creating multiple SIP channels or PRIs with multiple session border controllers. So rather than us being responsible for the redundancy, we're paying Microsoft essentially through a rental to have their calling plans provide the redundancy. But the components are there. The Office 365 as a portion of that. There's the Cloud PBX or voice component, and then a calling plan. So those are the individual components.
So, right, the question is, why would you want to use a cloud solution versus an on-prem solution? The time savings. Like I said, I was able to set up phone numbers for my users in my demo within 5 minutes. That annual support cost for maintaining your PBX, that life cycle refresh where you have to go out and purchase a new PBX and new phones, all of that is eliminated. The features, we've talked about this in other teams' presentations, but Microsoft is continually coming out with new features, and they just show up. You don't have to do an upgrade, you don't have to plan downtime, they're just there. Scalability, right? You don't have to add on to your system, you don't have to buy new phones for it. Microsoft's security and compliance, I mean, they're one of the best in that. And uptime, and because I mentioned that earlier. So it's, you don't have to worry about a power outage or natural disaster or anything that you have to deal with equipment on site.
One other thing I'd add to that is just management. I know elimination of solution and support costs, but Tim, you're in a role now where, you as an Office 365 administrator actually are, taking over phone capabilities. I'm not saying you're doing so for our organization, but
Right.
You're able to do so. And so from a skill set perspective, the idea of this phone system, right, where you have vendor A and, person A that are able to support it. And there's really not a lot of cross training going on. Now you're kind of moving that skill set and vendors into, a larger pool, if you will.
So some other advantages of having, a Cloud PBX, your calendar is part of your phone system now. So your phone knows when you are in a meeting. You can do things like team calling, where you create a group of people that, their phones ring. You can give others the ability to call on your behalf. So it shows up as your number, but they don't have to go to your office and pick up your phone to do it. And then that availability call routing, so you can set it up when you're out of the office to route to different people. So all features that aren't typically part of an on-prem system. And these are those kinds of things that just, keep evolving.
Yeah, we had a call this morning with a customer that had a need for, from a call center perspective, they're used to agent-based, right? And I'm available, I'm not available, and they have to manually click in or not. And I mentioned what was available out of the box, right, without call center capability, just to go to Teams. I said, you could do availability, right, based on whether they're in a call or not on a call. He's like, that's perfect. That's enough of what I need, at least from a basic perspective. So there's opportunities there, even in the short term, to take advantage of this.
So what would something like this cost? The pieces you need an Office 365 account, you need the phone system add-on, and then a calling plan. So those are the three pieces you need. Right now, Microsoft's offering the E1 Office 365 license for free.
For 6 months as a trial.
For 6 months, yeah. You need the phone system add-on, and then if you did the domestic call planning, that's $20. So $20 per user per month will get you a phone in the cloud. You can add the audio conferencing. What some people are doing is just the people that need to create those conferences, get those licenses. Not everyone necessarily needs that. So on the low end, it's $20. And then depending on what license you have, you know, these are your options.
Yeah. So bring your own Office 365 license, you know, that you might already be leveraging. And obviously you'd have to add on phone components, and assuming you were going with Microsoft as a calling plan, going with that. As mentioned, there is a capability to do direct routing, but in this chart, we're kind of leveraging Microsoft's calling plans.
All right. Now it gets interesting. So I'm just going to quickly show you what I did to set that calling up. So I added the Microsoft 365 domestic calling plan to our demo tenant. And then I went into the Teams admin console and I ordered some numbers. So I did it twice. The first time it didn't work. The second time it did. It may have something to do with the numbers I picked. But once I placed that order, I came over to this tab right here, and those numbers showed up immediately. So I just clicked on the number, I clicked edit, and I assigned it to my user. So add the license, ordered some numbers, and assigned the numbers to the users. It literally took 5 minutes. And
so you've got the Cloud PBX component. Now you've got a phone number, right? Cloud PBX was your ability to have the voice. That was the component that's $8. Then there's the line, or the phone number, if you will, and the ability to do inbound and outbound. That's the calling plan. And then last but not least, you need a Teams client. And a Teams client, Tim, you've got it installed on your PC, but you've also got it installed on mobile devices, just like myself, right? And so when you receive a call, inbound to that number, it rings on your Teams client laptop or Teams client mobile device. You have a choice as to where you'd like to pick it up.
So what I'm going to show you here is I am signed in with two different users. One user is actually using the desktop application. The other user is using a browser. And I'm able to make a call from the browser, and then I can pick it up on the desktop client. So I needed some way to figure out all these different accounts I'm using. So this is it's an admin account, so it's a super account, so that's why it's Superman. But I can place a call. So this is using the web. And now here it is. It popped up on the desktop app. I'm not going to answer it. But I just made a call from a web client to a desktop client, right? Using Teams Voice on the cloud in a demo using GoToMeeting.
Right, which is one of the reasons why, ironically, because Teams is challenging to show Teams within Teams, we're actually using the GoToWebinar platform, which we've been leveraging for a few months now, but we may be transitioning over to Teams here shortly.
So just some other things real quick. You can add contacts. So I could call my cell phone. I created a contact for that. And just a little bit on voicemail. So I left myself a couple of voicemail messages. So it's just all the typical functionality you see from a phone system, just all right here. My history of all the times I was testing this, calling back and forth, missed calls, whether it was incoming or outgoing, it all shows up here in the history. So everything you would expect to see. And while we're demoing, this morning, I saw a reference to Microsoft has a crisis communication app for Teams. So I just thought I'd show you real quickly some of the features that has. It's really about communicating. It's really applicable, considering the situation we're in right now. So quickly, right, I click on the app. Here's my status, I can show I'm working from home today. Well, this is the first time I've even tried this, so I'm working from home for the foreseeable future. So it'll let other people see my status. And it's just a location that you can use to communicate stuff. Oh, wow, it even sent out. Who do I want to send that to? Wow. Share to team. I'll skip that for now. So the company news area here is just an area for you to post. I just did some tests because I just set it up this morning. World news, you can actually use RSS feeds here. So I just did the WHO RSS feed, which is really useful. And then, right, tips, frequently asked questions, links, emergency contacts, all information you can populate based on your organization. I was able to pin this app right on my app bar here. So you can do that through your admin console. So it would be there for everyone. And then you can make a request. So if you needed something, you could come here, fill out a quick form. Then all this shows up under the activity. So as things are posted, right, here are the notifications showing up under the activity. So just, I thought it was appropriate. It's Teams related and
Yeah, not necessarily right on the voice, but voice is again just a use case within within Teams that we thought we'd explore. But this is obviously a very relevant one. So,
all right, back to the presentation. We'll let Bruce talk to this one.
So one of the things we're finding, right, is as you can see, it's relatively straightforward to set up Teams natively for voice components. There's some things obviously to consider, which users to light up. There's some licensing components, but in general, what we're finding is organizations that don't have phones that are going remote very well, right, where they're I don't know, using cell phones and going, what was Joe's cell phone number again, right? They have a plan that needs a quick shot. Teams voice can be set up in a relatively quick manner. We believe that a few days of effort to kind of onboard things, get the clients installed, light up the PBX, light up the licensing, get trained on that are helpful things. And so we have a rather turnkey offering for doing Teams voice remote plan. This is not, hey, how do you integrate with my existing phone system? And hey, is my call center going to work? No, this is more like, you could forward maybe your PBX to, an 800 number potentially, gets ported over into this new system. We can set up an auto attendant to then route it to the appropriate people, things of that nature. So I wouldn't say quick and dirty as much as I'd say quick and clean, right? No integration, no on-prem infrastructure, just getting Teams up and running. And we're active and running on a few of these deployments right now.
All right, time for another poll. So do you have a conferencing solution that lets you use video and work remotely, basically, as we get into the next part of our presentation?
I'm going to guess that that's video conferencing.
Yes.
We're moving from the voice component. And again, voice is, similar. It's like an app or a feature of its capabilities, as is conferencing. So it'll be interesting to see what people have here. Oftentimes, if people do have conferencing solutions, they're partially deployed. And so I'm kind of expecting partially to be the highly chosen choice here. Usually a few people have that solution. Okay. Great. So I've got
no one partially.
Yes, yep. No one partially.
So Teams, we've covered this a few times, the hub for teamwork. It has chat, meetings, calling, all built in. That's native to the app. Bring all those features into one location. The collaboration, the ability to use native Office 365 apps. Worked on the presentation for this through Teams. The ability to customize that app that I was able to install. It's not a native Teams app, but I was able to import it and do some configuration and show that in there, and security. So just high level, why Teams again, before we jump into some of the meeting aspects. So, I think what we find to be extremely useful is that ability to meet from anywhere. So, we have the big conference room set up. We have people on their desktops. We have people that call in on their phones. Same experience, whatever device you're using.
Yeah, on the phone, I find it particularly useful when something's being shared. I have a relatively small phone, but yet the pinch and expand capability. So even this demonstration today, I could see the slides and/or aspects of that slide simply with pinch and zoom, and that's just built right in. Things of that nature. So,
which is demonstrated here. Take a photo on your phone, right? Join the meeting and then present. And now you are, it's a kind of a new functionality to be able to present from your phone into that environment. Not a lot of solutions offer something like that.
Obviously, similarly, this could be used for remote support. Tim, you and I have used this recently, right? Just to show what's going on a phone, a particular problem you're having. So the conferencing is also support, right? Person or people helping others. So
I'm sure everyone is familiar with this video. This is just showing, one of the features of Teams that makes it unique. It's something that they're expanding. Not only is going to be background blur, but pretty soon you're going to have custom backgrounds. So
here we are in one of the leading products that in the marketplace, or has been a leading product, GoToMeeting, and we have no blur capability, right? So, but it is a nice feature, and we leverage it daily. Just can't use it here in GoToMeeting.
So Bruce had mentioned this earlier, the ability to record. It's invaluable, right? When someone is late to the meeting, they can play that recording back and catch what they missed. If they're on another call and can't be there, they can rewatch it. After you've recorded it, the ability to take that audio and convert that into text so you can search the meeting and find out specifically when somebody was talking about something specific. Huge advantage, keeping meetings on track and people on the same page.
And that's something, just to double emphasize that you can turn captioning on within any meeting in Teams, so that it does its best job at real-time transcription of what it is you're saying with captions in the bottom left, and then those words as portion of the recording, as an example, can be searched. So we've leveraged this many times where, what did they say again about pricing or whatever, and just search within the video, find that minute 22 there was discussion about the topic that you're interested in. So it makes video much more usable as an asset also. So
a few advantages I think that you get from the mobile experience. The Teams client is smart, so it's going to detect when you have a low battery and turn your video off. It's going to detect you have a poor network connection. It can automatically reconnect. Like if you're mobile and you switch between cell towers or jump from cell to wireless, call me back instead of trying to do a network connection. You want it to be a cellular connection. So a lot of enhanced functionality built into that. And I think earlier we had talked about how generations communicate, and certainly the newest generation is all in on the mobile experience. That's their preferred way of communicating. So the next topic is meeting rooms. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this. It's a very specific function. The thing I think I like about it is that one-touch join, which is identified right here. we have this set up in our conference room. You just add the conference room to the meeting when you're doing your scheduling. And then when you go in the room, there's a calendar right on there, and you just click the button and the room is part of the meeting. So you can do dual screens. It's super easy to share content. One screen typically shows who's joined the meeting, so you know if we're waiting for someone, it can show you who's talking. So it just makes that whole experience much better.
My only additions here are, there basically are two varieties. We just had a demonstration actually from Polycom on their latest, devices they have for rooms, and effectively they fall into two camps, right? One is where the room itself is, think of the room as kind of like a person, and you can invite the room. You can, the room has its own computer essentially, which is the console there, which can activate the screens, one-touch join, all of that. Or there's room devices, right? And room devices that can make the room, from a video perspective, you bring in your own computer in there effectively, or you have a dedicated computer for it. But most often, it's just a room that's enabled for huddles, where you can plug in a USB device and maybe get good video quality, good audio quality for the size room that you're in. So, bring your own compute or have it already in there with a one-touch console.
So these three
there's a lot of devices being created.
Yeah.
So
all kind of the same idea, just some different features around it. The devices you use are Windows 10 devices. That makes that interface familiar. Low training, click the button to join. So it's just simple to deploy and simple to use. I think some of the cool things that Teams does that maybe some other solutions don't: touch displays, the ability to do digital ink, and then this next one where you can use a content camera. So it's a camera not for people but for content. And in this example, it's on a whiteboard. And what the Teams client is doing is it's interpreting what's being written and turning it into digital ink. And so what you can do with that then is the Teams client will display the ink on top of the person in front of the whiteboard. So I think a digital whiteboard isn't necessarily something everyone has, but everyone has a whiteboard or a pad of paper. And so you can use this combination of a camera and the Teams client to do some really neat things to make those meeting experiences much better.
3 to 5 steps ahead of taking a picture of it and sending it around. Right?
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways to do this. We've talked about the mobile app, using it on your PC. The missing pieces are the peripherals. So I use an over-the-ear Bluetooth headset. Bruce uses
I'm using a USB. I've just always, I've had challenges with Bluetooth in the past and decided I'll just stay connected. But from that perspective, we've also used, little earpod headphones, either plugged in my laptop or into my phone. I've got a little puck device when I'm in a small group that I carry with me. I don't have a desk phone, nor have I for quite a long time. We certainly use the conference, tri-legged phones there in our conference rooms. And we do have a room system with dual screens as a dedicated device in our large conference room too. Seen it all.
So these are some more of the traditional conferencing and personal devices. The next slide here shows
the one in the bottom left, actually, if you or actually that one, which is still on the left there. It's kind of interesting there. In that particular case, we got a demonstration of that yesterday. It's effectively using your mobile phone as the computing device. So essentially, that's just a dock for you to charge your phone, but because it does a connection to your phone There's a Teams button on the number pad, as well as maybe people feel more comfortable that this is a phone with having the keypad and so forth. But effectively, it's a headphone, a Bluetooth connection to your phone. It's a Teams Smart. It's a Teams Smart dock, basically, for your cell phone. So it was an interesting device for home or work use.
So here, just want to show some of the different vendors that have systems that are approved to work with Teams. So all the big names are here. They all have their own take on it. So there's a ton of options for this.
And certainly one of the things that we're well aware of and have leveraged in some environments is Polycom does have a capability to do some interoperability with other systems, and it's a cloud-based service effectively that you're turning on to provide that interoperability between let's say a legacy conferencing system that you want to kind of make Teams smart, and so for some extra bucks, if you will, but with relatively low headache, you can get that interoperability.
So just a kind of a summary of what devices are appropriate in what environments. So your headset, desktop phone, a mobile device for your personal, the pucks, your phone, right? When you're mobile, I also have a puck. You can do some neat things with the pucks. I use OneNote a lot, and OneNote has the ability to record audio as you are taking notes. So by using the puck, I'm able to record the audio of a meeting as I'm taking notes, and then I can play back that specific part of the audio that's associated with the notes I was taking at that time. So a neat feature, got to have a puck to do it. And then, into the bigger spaces using the conference room systems, cameras, and whiteboards. So just kind of a breakdown of where those pieces fit into which kind of meeting you're having.
I think we all look forward to the days when we're huddling in a conference room again.
Yeah. So last topic I wanted to touch on here is live meetings. Kind of just getting rolling as we were looking for a solution for our meeting solution. Teams meetings are for up to 500 users. Live meetings are for up to 10,000. So it's more of a one-to-many. You're not going to be sharing your screen with other people taking over. Not that kind of environment. It has the ability to use high-end digital video processing equipment, the moderated question and answer. It's more of a hosted, larger scale type of a environment.
Yeah, it does sentiment analysis, meaning, thumbs up, sideways, or down with regards to what it is you're saying at the time. So you can see various trends as to what the crowd reaction is, if you will, relative to the speaker. But you can imagine for all hand on deck scenarios that in larger organizations, that could be very helpful. So, not for our typical mid-market customer, but know that it's there.
Just a little bit more information on it. So as we were preparing for this and as things have evolved, I came across, the remote work checklist Microsoft put out. It just seemed appropriate to include it in this presentation. And it's not really technology, recommendations, create a workspace for yourself. Now that you're remote, the communication's more, right, important than ever. The first couple of office hour meetings we had, we really hadn't gotten the word out to customers, but I think internally we used it as a great resource just to talk about what's going on internally, because you're not going to stop by someone's office because you're not in the office. Healthy boundaries, so you just don't sit down at your desk for 8 hours, right? Do those online meetings. Make sure you include everyone, even if they don't participate. That recording functionality. So if you missed it because you were on another call, you could go back and hear it. That hallway talk. So do something more informal. It could be chat. It could be an impromptu meet now meeting. Have fun. right?
Yep.
This is some trying times. You got to figure out some way to have some fun.
Good stuff.
So our calls to action. So we've talked about our envisioning and readiness several times. We can help you get started with teams. Some, I think, new things that we're more focused on now is that remote access. We've come up with several different solutions to help people in that area. A quick remote voice option, and then more longer term things that Skype to Teams transition.
Yeah, and in the remote access space, just to be clear, our three options that we're kind of running around discussing with customers that we know that we can transact quickly on, because that's what they're asking for help on. And so our engineers are actively busy doing either VPN deployments and helping organizations scale their VPNs to be appropriate for the entire organization as opposed to the occasional remote worker, and then helping manage and make sure that there are secure endpoints doing those VPNs. We also have a I'll call it ConnectWise Control, but basically a remote access solution. It's very much a screen share where a device at home is accessing a device at work, and essentially a very easy, no frills way to continue working remote by leaving a machine essentially on. We'll manage the machine at your work to make sure that it's patched. Antivirus has remote control capability, and then you can yield in from whatever device is at home, including Chromebooks, as we tested 2 days ago. And then the third is accessing industry-known solutions, things like Citrix, to leverage that. A little bit of a longer-term play, a little more expense to it, but certainly an elegant solution for remote access. The remote voice we kind of discussed was intended to get things up and running. For those that are more interested and that are on Skype today and seeing the benefits, we certainly have something called a discovery, design, and deployment, which we can walk through and are doing so with some customers now, evaluating their Skype environment, their calling plans, their on-prem architecture, their high availability options, their routing, their dial plans, and so forth, and then getting in a mode to convert that to Teams, whether that be using Microsoft's calling plan or their on-prem PRIs.
So what's next? So we're going to do another Teams webinar focusing on governance and security. And then, as we had mentioned earlier, our office hours, we're doing one again today at noon.
Yeah.
So to
Today
find that,
every day for the foreseeable future.
/events, right?
Yeah. Why don't we, yield the balance of the time, Tim, for some Q&A to this group. You kind of get your own Q&A time, and then, certainly we can extend that into the 12 o'clock hour using the, the Teams that's available at peters.com/events. Happy to answer any, even personal environment questions with regards to Teams and how-tos and so forth too. Tim's got a Teams demo console that's available to him.
Sure.
Doesn't look like we have any questions just yet, but we did have one person say thank you, so you're very welcome, and nice job today, guys. So
we have a, for a little bit of information, the Microsoft announced, I believe it was a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, the 6-month trial. If you have no Office 365 today, then there is a capability to leverage their E1 plan for 6 months, which gets you Teams. And as mentioned, there are some additional components that would be needed to be added on for the voice elements, or even for the what we'll call the conferencing capability. But you'd have the ability for people to get together, gather around a team, chat using their internet connected devices and so forth. We are recording this, obviously, and will be posted in a blog, right, Samantha?
Yes, we will. We're gonna try and shoot for, pretty quickly. But it doesn't look like there are any questions coming through, so we can close things out.
Okay.
Thank you everybody for attending, and thank you Bruce and Tim for your presentation. Everybody stay safe and stay healthy out there.